Good morning. Welcome to our Bible study this morning. This morning we're continuing in our series on Revelation by looking at Revelation chapter 14, verses 6 through 13. Revelation 14, verses 6 through 13. This morning we'll be looking at the warnings that are given by three different angels. That's what we're looking at this morning. For us to properly understand this text, it's important we understand the context in which this text is found. Keep in mind, we've just looked at a song that was sung by those who were saved in heaven. Keep in mind, and let me just review very quickly what we looked at here in the first part of the chapter in verses 1 through 5. Keep in mind, at this point in time, as John is writing this, there are many saints that are already in heaven. They're the Old Testament saints who have died, have gone to heaven, as well as, I'm sure, some of the New Testament saints who have already died and gone to heaven. So as this vision is given to John, he sees these saints who are in heaven. They've passed away, their spirit is in heaven, but their bodies are still in the grave on earth. Okay, these saints, in their spirit beings, there's the spirits of these saints, is singing praises to the Lord, honoring Him. Why are they honoring Him? Because He's coming back. It's like they're announcing His second coming. And as you'll see as we progress in this chapter 14, in the next few lessons, you'll see that His second coming actually takes place here in this chapter. So immediately prior to His second coming, we find these saints of the Lord praising and honoring Him, singing a song of worship to Him, because they know the time has now come for Him to come back. Okay, that's what we were looking at. So now as we pick up in our lesson this morning, immediately after the saints of God in heaven are praising the Lord for the fact He's coming back again, He's going to save His people from this earth, and then He's going to send His wrath to fall on the lost. Immediately prior to that, we have these three angels in our lesson for this morning giving a warning. Three different messages of warnings. Because Christ now is ready to come back. You'll understand more as we get into these, what these warnings are all about. So keep in mind the time frame we're looking at. It's immediately prior to the second coming of Christ. You have both lost and saved yet on the earth, awaiting for Christ to come back, take the saved home with Him, and then send His wrath upon the lost. And immediately prior to that event, you have these three angels warning warning others of the Lord's soon coming. Okay, if you'd turn to me please to Revelation 14, verses 6 through 13. First of all, we're going to see the warning that's given by the first angel. This is a warning that God's wrath is ready to fall. This warning is found in verses 6 down through verse number 7. So in verses 6 and 7 we find the first warning given by these angels. It's a warning of the fact that God's wrath is about to fall upon lost mankind. Listen to what's said. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven. Okay, John now, if you remember during the course of his prior visions that he's received, he's seen angels at different times in heaven. Well, now he sees another angel appear. He appears in heaven. He's flying in the midst of heaven as John is seeing this. And watch what this angel does. This angel is having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. So John sees this angel flying in heaven. He possesses the gospel message. The death, burial, the resurrection of Christ. The different witnesses to His resurrection. A part of the gospel message involves not only the work of Christ on the cross, but man's great need for that work. We have this angel now flying in heaven, prepared to deliver this gospel message to the world, to every corner of the world, to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. Now, once again, as we've seen in the book of Revelation, we do understand all of these visions are symbolic. What's this a symbol of when John sees this angel with the gospel that he's going to deliver to all the world prior to Christ's second coming? This is symbolic of the truth that the Lord is going to send his gospel message out into all the far corners of the world, and we see it taking place even today. Beginning with the establishment of the local church. From that point forward, you've had the Lord give the Great Commission to his local assemblies to take the gospel to the world. We have individual Christians with the responsibility to tell others about what Christ has done for them. That's taking the gospel into the world as well. So throughout the New Testament time period especially, you've had the gospel message going out to both Jew and Gentile alike. As time progresses, more and more of the world hears this gospel message. As a matter of fact, in Matthew 24 and verse number 14, let me read this to you. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. That was Matthew 24, where the Lord promises the gospel, the message of his work and man's need of that work, the Lord promises would go out into all the world. And that would be one of the great signs of the Lord's second coming. Folks, again, we see that taking place in the world around us today. We see the gospel message reaching out into places that have never had the gospel before. For perhaps satellite, via radio, via television, via the different missionaries who have boldly trusted in the Lord and got into countries that have never received the gospel message before at the risk of their own life. In many, many different ways, you've had the gospel message continuing to permeate the world. And as Christ's second coming gets closer, more and more of the world now has been receiving the gospel message. That's why Christ said, look, one of the great signs of my second coming is you'll see the gospel going out into all the far corners of the world. That's what this symbolizes. You have this angel flying in heaven holding the gospel message ready to deliver it to the entire world. Well, we know that Christ literally accomplishes that through his local churches and individual Christians. Verse 7, saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters. A part of this message that the angel declares as he's giving out the gospel message to the world is the need to fear God. Folks, especially lost mankind has a great need to fear God. Listen, if lost mankind feared the Lord as they should, you would find them running to Christ for salvation. The problem is they don't fear God as they should. But likewise, even for saved people. Yes, saved people should reverence the Lord. Yes, saved people should respect the Lord. Yes, saved people should worship the Lord and put him first in their life. But you know what? Saved people should also fear the Lord. Literally fear him in the sense we all understand as his children, he chastens those who are willfully disobedient to him. We find that truth many different times in the Bible where we're told the Lord will chasten those he loves. That's one of the great marks of sonship. Folks, I don't know about you, but I don't like the chastening hand of the Lord. I fear the chastening hand of the Lord. I don't fear that he's not going to love me anymore. I don't fear that he's going to cast me out of his family. I don't fear that I'm going to lose my salvation. But I certainly do fear his chastening hand. So even for a saved person, there is a great need to fear God and to respect him, and to understand that when we willfully turn our backs on what the Lord wants for our life, he'll chasten us to bring us back to him, and it'll be done out of love and out of concern for our benefit. He says, give glory to him, for the hour of judgment is come. See, Christ is ready to come back now. The hour of the judgment of man's sin now is come. And worship him that made heaven, earth, sea, and the fountains of waters. Here we're reminded that Christ is what? He's the great creator. He created us. Therefore, he holds authority over us. Again, keep in mind, in the book of Romans, Paul makes this plain. A potter has authority over that which he makes. The clay pot, for example. You know, a potter can make a clay pot, and you know what? He can put it on a shelf. He can use it daily to eat. He can use it as a dog food bowl. He could even throw that piece of pottery down and break it into millions of pieces if he wanted to. Why does the potter have the right to do with the vessel whatever he wants to do with it? It's because the potter is the one that created that vessel. Therefore, the potter has authority over that vessel. The angel is reminding the people on earth, look, Jesus is your creator. He has a right to do with you what he will. So don't come crying saying, Lord, you're judging my sin. That's unfair to me. You have no right to do so. Boy, we can't say that. You know why? The Lord has a right to judge us of our sins. He has graciously, mercifully given chance after chance after chance for people to come to him and repent. Remember, this very symbolism here is showing that his gospel is going out to the very last day when he comes back. The Lord is, from a human standpoint, consistently offering for people to come to him and be saved until the very last second when he comes back. He's a very gracious and merciful Lord. And so we need to remember he's our creator. He's the one that has authority over us. He can do with us what he wants. We should never feel like the Lord is unjust in judging a person for sin, or the Lord is unjust when he chastens his children to bring them back to him. Folks, that's not injustice at all. He has the right to do with us what he wants. He has the right to save those he pleases, and he has the right to allow those who are yet in their sins to continue on in their chosen sinful lifestyle, which would end in an eternity in the lake of fire. The Lord's not obligated to save anyone. None of us who are saved deserve the Lord's salvation. It's only by his grace that he has so graciously chosen to save any of us, because we all deserve the lake of fire. The Lord could have stood back and not done a thing and watched all of mankind die and go to hell. He could have done that. And he wouldn't have been unjust at all. You know why? Because we all deserve it. But by his grace, he chose to save some out of that horrible, wretched mess of sin that mankind finds itself in. You can see his great grace there, folks. And you can see the fact that truly God is our creator. He has authority over us. He can do with us as he sees fit. He is one that is to be feared. Okay, it goes on. And there followed another angel saying, okay, here's the second warning now that comes from the second angel. He followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city. Okay, now please keep in mind, in this text, Babylon is representative of what? The kingdoms of Satan. Keep in mind, folks, that and there's many different ways you can look at this. Throughout history, Babylon, the world empire of Babylon, as long as it existed, it was an enemy of God. Babylon opposed God's people. Babylon by force took over God's people. Babylon by force enslaved God's people. Babylon tried to force God's people to worship their king. In the case of Nebuchadnezzar is one example of that. The history of Babylon is a history of rebellion against God. That's one reason why Babylon is symbolic here of Satan and his kingdoms. Just like Satan and his political and religious kingdoms of the world opposed the Lord, so too Babylon did. But the similarities and the symbolism goes even farther. If you stop and think about the very beginning of the nation of Babylon, it really helps us to understand where this symbolism is taking us when it comes to Satan and his kingdoms. Do you know what began the city of Babylon? It was the Tower of Babel. Matter of fact, that's how Babylon then got its name. The Tower of Babel was the very first beginnings of the kingdom of Babylon. The Tower of Babel. Do you remember what the Tower of Babel was all about? Remember the story? I'm sure most of us do remember the story. You have men who, and I'll quote this from the Bible, they said, let us make a name for ourselves. They were a prideful people. They wanted other people to know all about them. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to make themselves a name. They didn't want to honor and glorify the Lord. They didn't want to honor and glorify their Creator. They wanted to honor and glorify themselves. Folks, that's the epitome of humanism. That's the epitome of selfishness. And we saw that on display in the life of the lost individuals who were at work in the city of Babel, building that tower so they would make a name for themselves. Another reason why they built the tower was not only to make a name for themselves, but also lest we be scattered abroad. They said, if we don't build this tower, we're going to gradually be scattered over the face of the earth and will never be able to find our way back home again to reunite. But they said, if we build a tower that goes up into the sky, we'll always be able to look and see that tower and follow it back to be a unified kingdom once again. They wanted unity because they knew unity was strength. The sad part was it wouldn't be unity in Christ. It wouldn't be unity about worshiping God and serving the true Lord. It will be unity based on that humanism and selfishness we just talked about. That was the very beginnings of the kingdom of Babylon. Do you now kind of see why Babylon is a wonderful picture of Satan and his kingdoms? Stop and think about it. What's Satan all about? Selfishness. I want to be like God. I want to receive the worship that is due God alone. That's what Satan wanted. That's why he was cast out of heaven. You have selfishness. You have Satan stirring up in the hearts of men the ideas of humanism so that men would worship themselves instead of worshiping the true God. So men would look to themselves for their own salvation instead of looking to the Lord for their salvation. You can see there's many similarities, and I'm just touching just the surface of it. There's many similarities between Babylon and its beginnings and Satan and his kingdoms. That's why it's pictured here as Babylon. Once again, remember the idea is this. Babylon is fallen and fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Now please keep in mind, God's judgment against Babylon had not literally taken place yet. As far as the spiritual Babylon, Satan and his kingdoms, that's yet in the future. It hasn't even taken place yet. When's God going to judge this spiritual Babylon? When's God going to judge Satan and his kingdoms on earth? It's going to be when Christ comes back again. So this is a future event being talked about. But you notice how the angel makes it sound? Babylon is fallen, past tense, is fallen. The angel is making it sound like this is already a done deal. The angel is making it sound like the defeat of Babylon has already taken place, and yet it's still in the future. Okay, why is that? It's as good as done. Folks, do you know in today's time when we're sitting here, in this case, this is March, I believe, 3rd of 2015. Do you know that, in a sense, Satan and his kingdoms are already defeated? They were defeated on the cross when Christ died. And that defeat will be made manifest when Christ comes back again. It's a sure thing. There's no doubt about it. In God's sovereign counsels, Babylon has already been defeated, even though we don't see it yet. That's what this angel is reminding us of. He's saying, look, this long-awaited event of Christ's second coming, when he'll take his people home to be with him, this long-awaited event of Christ's second coming, when he judges the lost world, it's as good as done. He's already defeated the lost world. And this angel is reminding us of that. What a blessing it is to know, folks. There's no doubt about it. Babylon is fallen. They may not look like it when we look out and see how Babylon is at work today, spiritual Babylon, but Babylon has fallen. All because when Christ died on the cross, he won the victory over them. Now, the third angel, the third warning now is spoken of in verse 9. The third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink the wine of the wrath of God. Okay. Here we now have the third angel. His warning is that Satan's kingdom is ready to fall. The previous angel said, look, it's already fallen. It's as good as done because God is in control. This third angel is saying, okay, in a sense it's already done, but in a sense it has yet to take place. That's one of the great events that will literally take place when Christ comes back. The defeat of Satan and his kingdoms will be made manifest and will be made plain for all to see. All right. The third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand." So he's saying anybody who is a follower of Satan, anybody who's a member of these political and religious kingdoms of Satan, they're the ones with the mark, remember, on their forehead and on their hand. We've talked about that in previous lessons. Those who have that mark, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. He said God punishing them is like a person pouring out wine upon someone else. Except the wine in the cup isn't going to be literal wine. It's going to be symbolic of what? The wrath of God. The anger of God. What's he saying? When Christ comes back, his anger, his wrath is going to be poured out against lost mankind. Prior to that, he'll take the saved people home to be with him, and we'll look at that in just a little bit farther in this chapter. But when Christ comes back, a part of what will take place is his wrath will be poured out upon lost mankind. Romans 1 talks about that. In Romans 1, I believe it's in about, 15 through 20, something in that area, I believe, is where you find it. It says, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath shown it unto them." What's that saying? It's saying, look, through nature and through the missionaries going out, delivering the gospel into the world, lost man has been given many proofs of God's existence. When they turn their back on that Creator, when they turn their back on the one who is true God, when they choose to go their separate ways apart from God, if they do not repent of that sin, if they do not turn back to the Lord and seek him and seek his face in faith, trusting him as their Savior and their Lord, if they don't do that, what's going to happen? It will be poured out without mixture. Not undiluted wrath will be poured out. The way Romans 1 described it was, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and righteousness of men." You see? When Christ comes back and when he punishes lost mankind, it's going to be a display of his wrath being poured out against lost mankind. Goes on, "He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. The smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no need of rest day or night." Okay, what kind of punishment is lost mankind going to receive at the hands of the Lord? It's a two different types of punishment. The first one involves what? God's wrath being poured out undiluted upon them at his second coming. Some people call that the Great Tribulation, which will end with the Battle of Armageddon. I'm sure many of you all have heard these different terms. The basic idea of all that is God is pouring his wrath out upon lost mankind, and here's the important part, as they live on the earth. That's a part of what this is talking about. But as you notice in verse number 11, there's more involved than simply a one-time punishment of the lost on the earth. It goes on, "In the smoke of their torment it ascendeth up forever and ever." There's a part of this judgment of God against sin that is an everlasting or eternal punishment. That takes place after the Lord judges lost mankind on the earth. Very quickly, and this is a very, very simplified explanation, okay, just to get to the very main basic point. The idea is this: as Christ comes back, he judges the lost who are living on the earth. A part of that judgment will involve causing all lost mankind on earth to die. At that point in time, their bodies will go in the graves, in the earth. Their bodies will be dead, laying on the earth, let's put it that way. Their spirits will go enter into the lake of fire. Their spirits will remain in the lake of fire for a period of time. Later, The Lord will resurrect their spirits out of the lake of fire. He will resurrect their bodies, and their spirits will join their bodies. And in Romans 20, we read about how they then will stand before the Lord at what's called the Great White Throne Judgment. Now remember, this is all of lost mankind now, both those who have lived in the Old Testament times and New Testament times have now been brought up out of the lake of fire. They've been brought back together with their bodies, and they're now standing before the Lord in judgment. At what's called the Great White Throne Judgment in Revelation 20, the Lord then decrees their final fate upon them. The Lord looks at two things, and this is where in Revelation 20 you can see this. He looks at whose names are written in the book of life or not to determine who is lost. Once he determines they're lost, he then opens up the books, being the 66 books of the Bible. He judges their works according to what the Bible says. Remember, the Bible is our perfect standard for life. The Bible not only reveals Christ to us, and that's the most important aspect of God's Word, but not only that, it also is the perfect standard for us to live by. So God now compares their lives and what they've done in their life with the standard the Bible has set. That will not determine if they go to hell or not. That will determine what level of punishment they face. Once the Lord sees their names are not written in the book of life, it's obvious that if their names aren't there, they're going to the lake of fire. But as he compares their works, what they've done, that will determine what level of punishment they face. For example, I believe someone, and again, I'll just use, one that we all know is a horrible human being, Hitler, for example, will face a much worse punishment in the lake of fire than a lost father who has lived a moral life, tried to take care of his family, but relied on his own works to save him. He too will be in the lake of fire being punished for his sins, but not to the degree of Hitler. Now, before I hear a whole lot from people, let me say one more thing. I believe the lightest amount of punishment in the lake of fire will be true torment. It will be absolutely horrible to face. When we talk about levels of punishment, it's not to lessen the degree of punishment, where we say, see, some places won't be so bad after all. It'll be like on a hot beach with a sunburn. Not at all. When we see levels of punishment, it's not to try and make it sound like some parts of hell won't be so bad. It's to emphasize how other parts of hell will be even worse than we can imagine. Because even the lightest judgment that a person might receive in the lake of fire is beyond our imagination how horrible it can be. So we should never feel like, well, as long as I live a good life on earth, it won't be so bad in hell. Boy, that's not so. Hell's got to be a horrible place, even for the people who live the most moral lives on earth. But I do believe there are levels of hell based upon the degree of sinfulness of an individual, or the degree of his sinful works, the degree of the sinfulness of his works. Okay, it goes on then. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, and the smoke of his torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night. There you can see, forever and ever. A part of this torment is an eternal torment. It's not simply what the Lord places on them at his second coming, but then following that, when he casts them back in the lake of fire for an eternity. Who worship the beast, his image, and whoever receiveth the mark of his name. Once again, who are the people receiving this twofold type of judgment from the Lord? It's those who are followers of Satan and members of his kingdom. In other words, lost mankind. In verses 12 and 13, then we find a summary. This kind of summarizes what these warnings are all about. It says, here is the patience of the saints. Folks, knowing that the Lord is coming back, knowing that the Lord will deliver his people when he comes back, and to know that the Lord is going to judge those who have abused God's people, is a source of great patience for the saints to serve him now. We can be patient in the midst of affliction. We can be patient in the midst of abuse. We can be patient in the midst of even the threat of having our life taken. How can that be? Because we know the Lord's going to make all things right in the end. He'll take us home to be with him, and he will judge those who abuse his people. Okay, so it's a source of great patience for his people. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. His saints are the ones, their life declares them to be one of God's. How is that? How does their life show that they are one of the Lord's? They keep his commandments. They trust in the Lord. They keep his doctrinal truths. That's a part of what the faith here is. They keep his commandments and the faith of Jesus. Not only do they trust in Jesus as their Lord and Savior, but they keep the faith of Jesus, the doctrinal teachings of the true Jesus. I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. See, John has been majoring on, in this passage, John has been majoring on the horrible judgment that falls upon lost mankind. He wants to remind us now, wait a minute. What about people who die in the Lord? In other words, how about those who were saved? They are blessed forevermore. They don't have to worry about facing eternal punishment. They don't have to worry about facing eternal death. Why? They're blessed forevermore. They're going to enter up into the Lord's presence. They're going to be able to enjoy an eternity with the Lord. It goes on. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors. Folks, when the Lord takes us home to be with him, we get rest from the labors here on earth that we have performed. Think about all the different ways we have to labor on earth, to make a living for ourselves, this, that, and the other way that we labor, but especially our service to Christ. As we serve the Lord in the midst of a fallen, sinful world, at times it can be labor upon us. It's a good kind of labor, but it is a labor. It's a burden. It's a responsibility, and many times it's very difficult. We can rest from those type of labors. We're going to be in a sinless environment. We're going to be living with the Lord. When we serve the Lord, there'll be no opposition. When we serve the Lord in heaven, there's not going to be anybody trying to stop us or threatening us. See, those type of labors are going to be done. They may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. Anything that we do for the Lord here on earth, we are promised we will be rewarded in heaven. Stop and think about what a great state of blessedness it is for God's people in comparison to the horrible state of judgment that awaits those who are lost. Folks, that's the message of those three angels, the warnings they give, as a reminder to us of their great need of the gospel message, their great need of salvation. Our responsibility is to take the gospel to them and show them their need of salvation, but it also is a great reminder to us of a contrast of how blessed we're going to be throughout eternity when we remember how horrible of a destiny lost mankind is facing throughout eternity as well. I want to thank you very much for joining with me. May the Lord bless you as you study his word.